November 11th, 1996. It's week 11 of the NFL season, and we find ourselves at Jack Murphy Stadium for the interconference battle under the lights on Monday Night Football between the Detroit Lions and the San Diego Chargers. For years, Lions head coach Wayne Fontes, this man right here, has been hailed as a miracle worker, because every single time his job is on the line, he finds a way to win and do the impossible. What he did in 1995, when it seemed like he was a cat and had exhausted 20 lives, let alone 9, was nothing short of an act of God, as the expectations were clear. Make the playoffs, or you're getting fired. So, what does Fontes do? After a 3-6 start, somehow, the Lions win 7 straight games and go to the playoffs, keeping his job for another year. But surely, there is no way he can keep his job after the 1996 season. The Lions enter this game at 4-5, having lost 3 straight following a 4-2 start. And for a team whose expectations by ownership were to win a playoff game, not just make the playoffs, their only realistic hope is to win this game against the 5-4 Chargers in front of a national television audience. Win this game and get back to 500, and you can salvage your season. Lose this game and drop to 4-6, 2 games back of the playoff picture, and in the middle of a 4-game skid, and with time running out, your chances of making the playoffs, and thereby keeping your job, are slim to none. And sure enough, this game was not going well for this man, Wayne Fontes, and the Lions whatsoever. It was a poorly coached catastrophe where, on multiple occasions, including a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, the Lions had the wrong number of players on the field. Every criticism about Fontes and his poor in-game management skills and situational awareness was 100% warranted here, as this game was his years of malpractice finally catching up to him and colliding in one supernova of suck. Everything that could have gone wrong for Wayne Fontes and the Lions on this day did, including an injury to quarterback Scott Mitchell, who was replaced in the second half by Don, I forgot he was even on the Lions, Majkowski, who was most definitely not what he was in the late 80s with the Packers. I'll put it that way. The Chargers held onto the ball for more than 40 minutes, absolutely dominating the time of possession. And late in the fourth quarter, the Lions had the ball down by 13 points, trying to mount any sort of comeback with 2 timeouts available. It's 4th and 4 at the 18-yard line of the Chargers. You have to go for it. Get this first down in the red zone, and you still give yourself a chance to win this game. It won't be easy. You need to punch it into the end zone twice, but you have the timeouts to do it and have a chance to realistically get the ball back. Don't get this, and the game is over. Sure enough, something actually goes Detroit's way for once, as Don Majkowski hits 1,000-yard receiver Brett Perryman for an 11-yard gain and a first down. The bad news, if you have to nitpick, is that Perryman couldn't get out of bounds and stop the clock. So with 2:04, it's going to tick down to the 2-minute warning. But while losing 4 seconds sucks, the most important thing was that you got the first down, and you still have 2 timeouts remaining. Go into the commercial break and talk things over, draw something up from the 7-yard line, and
that will tick down almost to the 2-minute warning, but Detroit will now take another timeout.
Wait a second. Timeout. You call the timeout? On offense? With 2:04 left? You decided to call a timeout on the offensive side of the ball instead of just letting it run to the 2-minute warning? We're not talking about calling a timeout on defense here, where it might make some sense if you were trailing by 13, because you'd have to burn the timeouts regardless. We're talking about calling a timeout on offense instead of letting 4 seconds tick off the clock. Why did you take a timeout? Wayne Fontes, you freaking terrible coach at in-game management, why the heck did you take a timeout?
And it's caught by Perriman for the touchdown. So they get in with 1:52
Great, you scored, but now only have one timeout to work with. So you pretty much have to go with an onside kick here, which...
Hansen kicking it to the near side. Oh, it's taken there by Junior. And San Diego's ball. What a play. Yep. What a play by Junior Sam.
Yep. Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Detroit Lions head coach, Wayne Fontes. I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to you that Fontes was fired after the 1996 season, as his luck in Detroit had finally, and maybe mercifully to some, run out. The funniest part is that this might not even be his worst clock management of the month of November 1996, as what he did a couple weeks later on Thanksgiving against the Kansas City Chiefs was absolutely appalling, and we'll probably get a video at some point. But this was just completely and utterly inexcusable. If you're fighting for your job, and in what might be the biggest scheme of your life up until this point, from a job security standpoint, you do this, you deserve everything that's coming to you. That's like knowing your performance is under review at your work, and you show up to work 45 minutes late with a drink from Starbucks in your hand while wearing a t-shirt and flip-flops. Literally, everything you could do to prove the point that you are no longer qualified to have this position, you are doing, and on thin ice, mind you, because nothing about this decision by Fontes made any sense whatsoever. So, with that being said, let's take a look at why taking a timeout on offense with 2:04 remaining when down by 13 points with 2 timeouts is a really bad idea. And I want to make it clear, it's not like Detroit was going to be called for a penalty, even though the yards are insignificant compared to the time at this point. Fontes called the timeout right away. Perryman made the catch, couldn't get out of bounds, and then Fontes was quick on the trigger with the signal. The clock is going to stop regardless of the 2-minute warning, so let's go to the chalkboard here and break down the two options. Option 1 is what most sane coaches would do in this spot, and what everyone with a brain would do in that spot, which is to let the clock run all the way down to the 2-minute warning. We're going to assume everything pretty much stays the same in terms of when the Lions score nets, just because it makes things easier. In real life, the first play took 4 seconds and stopped the clock because it was incomplete. The second play took 4 seconds and stopped the clock because of pass interference, and the Lions scored on the third play 4 seconds after that. So 12 seconds came off the clock on the ensuing 3-play sequence. Suppose you don't take a single timeout during this. The first play happens at the 2-minute mark, and by the time you're done with 3 plays, there's 1:48 on the clock. Let's say you kick it off deep, or you don't recover the onside kick, so the Chargers get the ball back. Let's also assume, just like real life, that 2 seconds came off the clock on the kickoff, so the Chargers are getting it back here with 1:46. We'll assume each play that the Chargers run takes 5 seconds off the clock, just for simplicity's sake. And we'll assume you force a 3 and out, because regardless of either scenario, if you allow a first down, the game is over. On first down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 1:41. At that point, you take your second timeout. On second down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 1:36. At that point, you take your third timeout. On third down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 1:31, plus 40 seconds off the clock after that to take it down to 51 seconds. The Chargers punt the ball away, it takes 7 seconds, and you get the ball back with approximately 44 seconds. Are your odds of winning good down by 6 points with approximately 44 seconds remaining? Of course not. But you at least have a chance. especially with the clock stopping on incomplete passes and plays out of bounds. Heck, the Chargers could conceivably throw the ball on third down, and if you get the stop, you could get it back with even more time than that. You can drive down the field in that time frame, get some deep passes, and win the game. You can get yourself into Hail Mary range, just like the Chargers did at the end of the first half. It is absolutely doable. Compare that to the alternative of what Wayne Fontes decided to do for some reason, as he went with option 2 by taking a timeout at 2:04, and yeah, you're going to notice a pretty stark difference. The first play happens at 2:04, and by the time you're done with the 3 plays, there's 1:52 on the clock. The kickoff takes 2 seconds, so the Chargers are getting it back with 1:50. Wait a sec, that's good. Fontes was a genius. He saved 4 seconds, right? Well, not quite. Because on first down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 1:45. At that point, you take a timeout. But remember, you burned one earlier at 2:04, so it's not your second timeout, but rather your final timeout. On second down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 1:40, plus 40 seconds off the clock after that to take it down to a minute. On third down, the Chargers call a run, taking it down to 55 seconds, plus 40 seconds off the clock after that to take it down to 15 seconds. The Chargers punt the ball away, it takes 7 seconds, and you get the ball back with approximately 8 seconds remaining, meaning you have time for 1, maybe 2 plays, with none of those plays able to be in the field of play unless you're going with a pitchy woo-woo play where you just lateral the ball 100 times. There's a pretty big difference between the two options, if you ask me. In one option, should you force a stop, you actually have a chance to drive down the field and score, and you can use the entire field. In the other option, should you force a stop, you need the biggest miracle in NFL history to score and win the game. By calling a timeout with 2:04 remaining, you save 4 seconds. By not calling the timeout, you save 36 seconds. When you're pressed for time, would you rather have more than 30 additional seconds to work with, or 4 seconds? Of course you want the 30 seconds. You want the bigger number. You want more opportunities. And somehow, Wayne Fontes, this man right here, did not realize that. He just decided, oh sure, let's take a timeout because the clock is running. Either completely unaware that the 2-minute warning was coming up and the clock was going to stop anyways, or thinking that calling a timeout now helps you later because you have more time right now, even though that is not the case at all and is a gross misunderstanding of how timeouts and how clock management actually work in this league. So yeah, this decision by Wayne Fontes was pretty freaking stupid. The math wasn't mathing at the time, and 30 years later, it still isn't mathing. But what did Al Michaels have to say about it? Al Michaels was the play-by-play man for this game, and was the esteemed voice of Monday Night Football on ABC for years. By this point, Michaels had been in the booth for the program for over a decade. He had seen everything, so he should know a thing or two about the situation. I'm assuming he was blasting the decision by Fontes and was utterly baffled and confused as to why Fontes called a timeout. Let's take a listen.
4th and 4 from the 18. Detroit's last gasp, and they keep it alive as Perriman makes the catch and takes it inside the 10 to the 8. Can't get out of bounds, and that will tick down almost to the 2-minute warning, but Detroit will now take another timeout. Good use of the clock here. Good time to spend it.
Wait a second, Al. Wait a second. Did you just say there was a good use of the clock and a good time to spend the timeout? In what universe was that a good use of the clock? You save 4 seconds now to sacrifice 40 seconds later. You burned a timeout so it wouldn't tick down to 2 minutes, completely oblivious to the fact that the clock is going to tick if and when the Chargers get the ball back, and there's nothing you can do about it. That is quite literally the exact opposite of good timeout management and good clock management. But okay, Maybe I'm just nitpicking here. Maybe this was just a mark made in passing, and I'm making a complete mountain out of a molehill here. Let's see how this conversation continues.
I'm not so sure I'd have taken a timeout there.
Well,
I'm not so sure that I would have, Al.
You know why? You save 4 seconds, I think, you're going to get the free one on the next play.
Yeah, but you get this one here. You get the clock stops at the 2-minute warning. You put it into the end zone on a pass, and all of a sudden you have a touchdown, and the clock stops there, and you still have 2 timeouts left.
Well, yeah, I think it's splitting hairs here a little bit, though. It's an interesting little call to make.
No way did that just freaking happen. No way did Al Michaels just say any of that. A slip of the tongue in the booth? It happens. A mark made in passing? Okay, it happens. But for him to adamantly defend that, criticize his commentators for splitting hairs, and to actually talk out his reasoning for it and justify it, my jaw is on the floor. There is no way, in front of approximately 20 million some odd people, that the #1 broadcaster for the NFL just said that. First off, Michaels is correct that by calling a timeout, you save 4 seconds. Congratulations, you can do math. Here's a cookie. However, that assumes that you can't take any other timeout. That assumes a universe where timeouts go away after the 2-minute warning. You save 4 seconds now, but you could keep it, use it on defense, and save 40 seconds later because of the play clock when the opposition is trying to churn and burn as much clock as possible. The 4 seconds are irrelevant. I showed the math. I showed the freaking chart. It's common sense. But then, with his color commentators correctly saying that the clock was going to stop anyway, for Michaels to fire back and say that they're splitting hairs? How is that splitting hairs? We're not talking the difference between having 4 seconds and 3 seconds remaining. We're not talking the difference between a 38-yard field goal and a 39-yard field goal. We're not talking about this or this. We're talking about this. We're talking about a difference of more than 30 seconds by using the correct strategy. In one strategy, you have a chance to win. In the other strategy, you have no chance to win, barring a stand for ban play. In one strategy, you can get the ball back and have time to run about 7 plays. In the other strategy, you have time for 1 play to the sideline and 1 Hail Mary or a lateral palooza. That is not splitting hairs. That is actually the exact opposite of splitting hairs. That's like saying it's splitting hairs to say that a batter hit a home run, when in reality, it was a pop fly that never left the infield. There is a major difference. Splitting hairs is someone having Josh Allen as the 3rd best quarterback in football and someone else having him as the 2nd best. This is someone having him at number 3 and someone else having him at number 50. What Fonts did was abysmal, but that's Fonts for you. It's a day that ends in Y with him. He's terrible at clock management, and it's poor in-game management skills define a lot of his tenure with the Lions. But what Michaels did, almost being hostile in the booth that anyone questions him and saying that it's just splitting hairs, when Michaels' logic made no sense in the first place and was just incoherent rambling? Holy crap, man, just holy crap. So what did we learn from all of this? Just because you can stop the clock now doesn't mean it's the best thing to do, and doesn't mean you'll be able to stop the clock later. Instant gratification isn't always a good thing. The purpose of your timeouts when trailing should be to save as much time as possible. And if you're using your timeouts to save 4 seconds when you don't have to, or better yet, those timeouts can actually be used to save way more time than that down the line, you're using your timeouts incorrectly for doing that. And if this is how you're coaching when your job is on the line, you're going to have the hottest of hot seats going forward. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Also in the case of Al Michaels, talk about what might be the stupidest moment of his broadcasting career. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.